Hey guys, this is EckhartsLadder. Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Starship Versus. One of my favorite channels on YouTube, Spacedock, has agreed to lend me his expertise and make a video for the channel that I know you guys are gonna love. I've done the same for his channel, and once you watch this, make sure to go check that out. There is a link down in the description. Anyway, without further ado, here's Spacedock.
Stargate represents one of the few science fiction IPs whose technology can be fairly compared to that of Star Trek, and the franchise offers a classic ship design in the form of the BC-304 Daedulus class, which may be able to challenge the huge assimilation cubes of Star Trek's Borg collective. The FTL capabilities of both the Cube and the 304 are incredible by the standards of either universe, but for the purpose of this comparison, only sublight propulsion is relevant. The Daedalus class has an extremely high rate of acceleration and is often seen performing relatively sharp maneuvers in combat. The Borg Cube is unusually quick for its size, but still limited by the physics of its enormous frame. The ship has no specific bow or aft, and does not need to reorient before moving on a particular vector. This allows the ship to bring alternate weapons to bear very quickly should certain emplacements suffer damage or exhaust their supply of torpedoes. In battle, both vessels should have no trouble performing maneuvers in keeping with their usual tactics. The Cube would most likely remain at a fixed point and rotate to alternate between its weapons emplacements, while the 304 runs circles around the larger vessel, performing railgun broadsides and lining up attack vectors for its beam weapons. The Daedalus class is armed with 32 ballistic railgun emplacements, 16 VLS missile tubes compatible with Naquadah-tipped nuclear warheads, and 4 incredibly powerful Asgard plasma beam weapons. The vessel's shields are some of the most durable in existence, able to reflect the full force of a coronal mass ejection and stand up to concentrated fire from large numbers of warships. The Borg assimilation cube carries 46 adaptive beam arrays, 12 focused neutron beam banks, 24 tractor beams, several plasma torpedo launchers, and a shield depletion pulse. Both the cube's armor and shields can be regenerated over time, and the ship's ability to analyze and adapt makes any energy weapon practically useless after 1 or 2 shots. Though the 304 would only be able to fire its plasma beam weapons a small number of times before the Borg adapted, the powerful weapons would likely be sufficient to seriously damage the large ship's shields. This would be crucial, as defeating the cube's shields would be the only way to open an avenue of attack for the 304's ballistic weapons. It's possible that any remaining Borg shields could be overwhelmed using nuclear warheads, as their erratic blast patterns would make them nearly impossible to adapt to, but any delay could prove deadly for the 304, as the Cube's weapon placements allow for ceaseless bombardment of the Tauri vessel's shields. The Daedalus class carries 2 squadrons of F-302s, a fast and lethal fighter interceptor that is usually a huge asset to the Tauri. In combat with the Borg, however, these fighters would be so useless that it seems prudent to simply keep them landed to preserve their pilots' lives. Against a vessel with dozens of highly accurate beam weapons, these tiny unshielded ships would be little more than spaceborne coffins, unlikely to survive more than a few seconds beyond the hangar doors. One possible use for the fighters would be as kamikaze craft, carrying Naquadah warheads, but given the 304's loadout of missiles, this seems unnecessary. Borg cubes carry many tractor beams, and often employ them to disable and assimilate hostile vessels. Given that the Daedalus class lacks the 360-degree firing arcs of the Borg cube, it's possible that the Borg vessel could use its tractor beams to hold the 304 in place when it is not engaging head-on, leaving the cube in safety from the 304's hugely powerful Asgard beams. If the Borg cube was able to deposit a boarding party onto the 304, the battle would be over almost immediately. While the 304's marine complement is formidable by the standards of its own universe, and their ballistic weapons would indeed negate Borg adaptation, the sheer scale of the cube's 640,000 drone complement would allow the vessel to fill every compartment aboard the Daedalus class with drones via transporter. I doubt that an engagement between a Borg Cube and a BC-304 could last particularly long. Either the 304 would defeat the Cube's shields and quickly cut the vessel down with beam weapons and Naquadah warheads, or the Cube would defeat the 304's shields before quickly disabling and assimilating the vessel. Should the Cube's shields remain intact or be restored after the vessel has adapted to the Asgard beam weapons, there would be very little the 304 could do to survive. They could attempt to use their nuclear weapons in a last-ditch effort to break through, too, but that would only leave their low-yield railguns to attack the Cube's regenerating hull, all while the Cube continues to hammer the 304 with beam weapons. To conclude, I feel that in some instances the 304 would be able to quickly overwhelm the Borg shields before they adapted and destroy the vessel, but in almost all engagements the Borg Cube would emerge victorious. The opening moments would rarely play out so completely in the Tauri vessel's favour, leaving the ship in a prolonged engagement that it could never win. Throughout the entire battle, the Cube would be constantly firing, rotating its body to bring new weapons to bear in a constant stream of weapons fire that continues through all the 304's manoeuvres and reorientations. It is worth pointing out that the Daedalus class remains one of relatively few sci-fi vessels that could realistically challenge a Borg Cube, and with the element of surprise and a skilled commander, the battlecruiser could come out on top, but in a general analysis, the Cube remains the superior warship. Thanks for watching. I'd like to say a big thank you to EckhartsLadder for hosting my video this week. He's currently over on my channel with a versus video between the T-70 X-Wing and Halo's broadsword fighter, so follow the link in the description to check that out. If you enjoyed the style of this video, please consider subscribing to my channel, Spacedock, where I cover ships and battles from various sci-fi properties every Tuesday and Friday.